Hey, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to our newsletter at theproductporch.com for notifications on the latest episodes and exclusive content. Some of the key factors that differentiate product manager versus director of product management.
Yep.
Are factors that might come up when you're thinking about aircraft.
Okay.
Altitude and horizon.
Oh. Welcome to the Product Porch with Ryan Cantwell, Todd Blackier, and me, Joe Gali. Let's put on our thinking caps. Today, we discuss the difference between product manager thinking and director level thinking. Now settle in, folks, because on the Product Porch, every topic is a product topic.
Joe, your musical taste, we learn about new things all the time. Was it Belinda Carlisle that came up once?
No, Bonnie Tyler.
Bonnie Tyler, that's right.
Yeah, every once in a while, between the creepy chili dog that Todd sends me, or the corn dog, will send me a link to the YouTube music video for Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Turn around.
Remember I told you what that was actually about? Did you ever look that up?
Right? It's about vampires. Yeah. It's about vampires.
It was going to be a vampire musical.
A vampire musical, just like in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which, by the way, is one of my top 3 favorite movies. I love Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
That's a very underrated movie. Underrated movie.
Guys, here we are. And I talk about this all the time, but I want to talk about it with you, where I'll ask people a question. How do you define product management? And inevitably someone says, CEO of the product. They'll say those words. And I know there's a lot of writings and thought about how that isn't exactly the best way to describe product management, because CEO of the product implies authority. And how much authority did you have when you were a product manager?
Very, very little.
None. Zilch.
Direct authority.
Direct authority. Yeah, to make decisions, do exactly what you wanted to do, and
little.
Very little.
Yeah. Maybe how the user story was written. Maybe.
well, but how about this? Compared to the CEO.
Yes.
Zilch.
There it is.
Yeah, I had no budget. I had no ownership on budget. Let me tell you that. I was given a number. You got to work within these numbers for budget.
And it just goes to show me how hard it is to define the product role. So I'll talk to people all the time who will say, my boss told me I need to think more strategically, but then they don't tell them how to do that. So those that might get direction get the wrong direction. They get on how their boss thinks they should act strategically and then tells their employee, you should do it this way because that's how I do it. But that's not right. So you've got different people in an organization, an individual contributor like a product manager, their boss like a director, their boss's boss like a VP, and so on. Like in the food chain continues. How does the thinking change? Or what markers are we looking for to say this indicates like the kind of decisions you make, the kind of thinking that you do, the activities, the behaviors that you need to lean into?
All right, Ryan. So first off, you're 100% right that they're different.
Yeah.
And I think a metaphor we can use for the factors, some of the key factors that differentiate by role, product manager versus director of product management.
Yep.
Are factors that might come up when you're thinking about aircraft.
Okay.
Altitude and horizon.
Okay.
Oh.
So those are 2 major factors, altitude and horizon. Now, not every aircraft that you get into can go as high or operates the same altitude.
Yep.
And the horizon looks different depending on what aircraft you're piloting.
Yep.
Right? If you consider altitude, the difference between a product manager and director of product management. Actually, even before I say this, let me point out, I think it's important to say, I'm not saying a way of thinking is better.
Oh, yeah.
That's not my point here. It's not about hierarchy and better ways of thinking. It's about orientation and context. So you should think appropriately, have the right thinking for your role. And so you think about a product PM thinking, low altitude, close to the ground. How do I solve this customer problem? What's the right next set of requirements?
Yeah. How do I prioritize what to work on next?
Right.
Yeah.
Director of thinking, high altitude, systems view, entire ecosystem, portfolios, budgets, right? And so just a different altitude. And then I said horizon. I think time horizon's a big one too. So when you think about horizon, PM, days, weeks, sprints, maybe as far at most as a quarter. Director often thinking about the quarter as a starting place, and up to a year, strategy cycles, things like that.
So at risk of over analogizing, if I can use that as a word. So
you're going to put a hat on a hat. Here we go. Hat on a hat.
That's where we had done this before. Put hats on hats. So the product manager is a waiter. They're not just carrying plates. They're translating the experience of the person eating at the restaurant. They're listening. They're sensing frustration. They're picking up unmet needs, and they're responding to those signals, whether it's back to the kitchen and then trying to improve the experience. They don't choose the ingredients. They don't set the pricing per se. They might have some recommendations, but they're influencing what gets considered. And then the director is more like the restaurant manager or the operator. They're ensuring the whole system works: staffing, scheduling, margins, food safety, supplier relations, menu consistency, like all of those things. They're not obsessing about whether table 7 wants more lemons in their ice water. They're watching patterns, and they are answering questions like, are we overspending on a particular ingredient? Do we need another server to help keep the experience high? Are we confusing customers with a menu that's 75 pages long? Like those kind of things. So the time horizon, you can see it's bigger instead of looking at dining experiences, trying to optimize for those things. How do you like my hat on a hat?
You guys, with your analogies, I'm just going to not try on this one because they're not going to be as like insightful, but I think
I want to go back through all the past episodes and find places where I shared a metaphor, and then right after Ryan shares a different metaphor. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess my metaphor is not good enough. Let's go over another metaphor.
No, both of them are really good, well thought out, articulate.
What about people? Who's in the aircraft? Oh no, Ryan's about who's eating at the table. Okay.
I think the last time it was ice cream cones and tops. That was hats on.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I get it, right? It's like the short term versus the long term.
That's part of it.
It's part of it. But there are so many people out there, so many PMs out there that want to grow into a director role. What do you have to let go from your PM identity to grow into that director role? Like, how does one go from a waiter to a head chef?
Yeah.
How does one go from a propeller jet,
right, the
to
turboprop,
a 717? Like, how do we, like, we're talking about, these are massive changes. These are big. I mean, and it may depend on the size of the company, the industry, the type of products you're working on. Like, and I think a lot of people would want to know this. Like, how does one go? How do you go from, because to me, it sounds drastic.
I think it's important. I still think it's important to play your role. So while I think it's good to understand the different ways of thinking between product manager and director of product management, if you invest too much of your time as a product manager trying to think like a director of product management, you won't be serving in your role. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
You know, one of the hardest things about adjusting to being a director of product management is accepting the fact that you're a little bit more removed from the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And accepting that you're not going to visit with them on a daily basis. You're not going to have the same touch points. You're not going to have the same insights, and you will be removed a little bit, especially as you begin to focus more on systems and processes. That's a challenging perspective pivot. But if you're a PM, you're a product manager, and you think, I want to be like a director. I know directors aren't worried about all these customer touch points because they're designing the system. And I want to influence more of the system design. And you're spending your time spinning your brain cycles about that. You're thinking about the wrong thing. Make sure you serve in your role.
Yeah.
But I like the question you asked about what you have to give up. So if you do move into a director role, I like that question that you asked about what do you have to let go of? It's a great question.
I mean, a real story. This was true of me when I started managing a team at the director level. Todd, you were talking about not to be as close to the customer. I'm going to talk about internal stakeholders. I still had people coming to me. I assumed I was a product manager, senior product manager, assuming a management role at this organization. And for me, a guy who's likes to be helpful, I found myself in a very sticky situation because I started doing too much. I was having to, okay, I'm going to keep everybody happy, my employees happy, my stakeholders happy, and also try to think like a director and do the big picture stuff. And it wasn't working. Like I was not performing well. And I had to recognize that, hey, I had to start, stakeholders, you don't need to come to me anymore. That's not my job.
And you know what that is? That's hero syndrome.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest adjustments. You're not the hero anymore.
Right.
If you thought you didn't get a lot of high fives and pats on the back as a product manager, just wait till you're director of product management.
Oh, man. Yeah. So it was a lesson learned, and I had to reset my stakeholder group. I guess that would be like your horizon, Todd. Who was I looking at and interacting with? And I couldn't do all the levels. I had to focus on the group that was more my peers and potentially above, and leave it to my team to support the rest.
So what I'm hearing you both say is, in so many words, part of moving into that role requires letting go, requires empowerment. It also requires trust and delegation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have those skills. You have to let go, and you have to, it's like, this is where you're really becoming a leader. You have to really empower and let others make decisions. You have to almost step back and let them make some mistakes so they can learn from it. I think that's probably, thinking back to my own experience, it's like you don't want the folks below you to fail, but you're hoping that they watch you, like that you lead by example, and that once you move on, you've set the standard, you've set the bar that they should follow moving forward. Yeah.
And Joe, you're using words that are very emotionally charged. How did I feel when these things were happening? Because honestly, it was a tough lesson learned. I did struggle. I won't be shy about talking about that, because I spent a lot of time in more of that individual contributor role, kind of growing and developing and being guided and coached at that. And then it was like, all right, now go do this. And some of the hardest things for me was, I hate to say it, Todd, but it was like, you shot me, like I nailed you for hero syndrome. I wasn't able to go be in every place, getting the pats on the back and like doing all the things. No, I needed my team do it. And I'll admit that was a little bit hard. I wanted to be visible because I was so visible before. I felt like I was doing lots of things, and I frankly wasn't as much anymore.
And that's the thing too, is as a product manager, you can get a lot of kudos and a lot of attention and appreciation from cross-functional teams from shipping stuff. Mm-hmm. So, you think about, you have a stakeholder who is been suffering with this problem, or hearing customers suffer with this problem for so long. They share it with you. You prioritize it, get it on the release plan, you release it, you tell them you release it, everyone celebrates you, yay! And you just seem like a hero because you're just doing things, getting things done that people want it done. One of the hardest adjustments for me to make as I became a director of PM. So when I was a product manager, first off, when I was a product manager, the other product managers were my buddies.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
And we see things leadership does. And at times we're just thinking, can't you figure this out? Why can you only fund one thing and not the other thing? Why are you moving resources so much? Like what, all those problems seem just like so simple to solve. And like leaders are just big old dummies. Because I would feel like I could back of the napkin something and say how we get all these features done that we're trying to do across the portfolio or in a suite. Suddenly as a director, I'm sitting in rooms looking at budgets, looking at portfolio budgets, looking at revenue projections. And it's becoming very clear when it's like, this product honestly doesn't deserve more than 2 engineers.
Yeah.
And, or you know what, maybe we should shelve this. And I think a big difference there, this is why you've heard me say it so often to product managers, don't tie your value to the product. Don't tie your value to the product. You hear me say it so much, because as a director, you start making those calls where you're like, we're not going to do that. And we're not going to do this. And we're going to shift those resources. And so your whole, like all those problems that were really easy to solve when you're a PM suddenly become a lot more challenging when you're a director.
So first of all, I'm jealous that Todd mentioned that and I didn't think of it first, because that was tough too. Kind of where you started, Todd, was I had a group of peers and we were friends. And then all of a sudden I'm their manager. Like they still wanted to talk to me like I was their friend, but I knew there were certain conversations that they were uncomfortable. Like I had to start drawing boundaries and it changed things. And that was tough too.
So I was just writing this down a little bit, just even thinking about, because there's so many people I know that are growing into a leadership role that want to become a director. And honestly, like for me in my career, it was like a carrot that I chased. And I thought it was, how many years of experience did I have? How many products did I manage? You know, were they successful? Like, I was like, well, I should just be a director because I've done it for a long time. I thought it was just like, it should be a given. Right. And that was in my 20s. Right. I'm like, I've done this now for 5 years. Why am I not getting promoted? You know, why am I not getting that director role? And I see other people doing it. And I think the folks that got promoted, now that I can go back and think about my own career, what was probably happening in their one-on-ones with their leaders is they weren't necessarily using their one-on-ones to talk about what their features were doing. They were changing the narrative. They were having discussions with their leader about what's going to happen. Help me understand how this ties into everything else that we're doing. What else is happening around us? How does this fit into that? How do we drive to that goal? I think like probably if I could go back and talk to my younger self, that was just so eager to get that director role. I think one of my pieces of feedback, even like just thinking about our conversation just now, is I just wasn't having the right conversation with my leader. I was just so myopically focused on the then and now and not thinking about how does this fit into a greater landscape of what we're doing for our customers. I don't know. What do you guys think?
If you're at that stage where you are a product manager and you feel like you're ready to take on a director level role, there are certain skills you need to possess. First off, you have to be a leader. You have to be able to get buy-in across other people, other groups, and get them to follow you. And there is something, I always thought it was fake, but there is something to executive presence. There is something real about being able to speak in a room and have people listen to you.
Yeah.
And you do need to possess some level of that. And as you go further on in seniority, it becomes that much more important. The next thing is you have to be someone who has strong processes and can enable processes and practices across teams. Now, I'll say that was one thing that I had to learn to care about, because as a product manager, I was always a little bit allergic to process. There's just certain things that I'm just like,
allergic to process.
It's true. But the reality is, if you're going to be a director, your job, more than what you do, any product sense or strategy you have, your ability to create structures and practices and align them across teams is going to be really important. And then you begin, that's the other thing, there were the paradigm shifts. Because as a product manager, you know, hey, Joe is great. Joe's crushing it. Ryan's a knucklehead.
He is.
I'm the director of product management. I roll out a new process. Joe's looking and going, I know Ryan needs to do that because Ryan doesn't know the crap he's doing. Thank goodness Todd put this plan together to help Ryan out. But then he's a little bit frustrated because like, I don't do it exactly this way. Why do I have to do that? I'm Joe. I'm killing it. But when you're a director and that paradigm shifts, you see why they do that.
Yeah.
Because you're working with different stakeholders and you can't have two different systems. Stakeholders, your marketing leader can't come to talk to one PM and they use one documentation style and one process and then talk to another one that uses another process. Your stakeholders have to see the same process. And even though you know, hey, I can let Joe go do whatever he wants and he knock it out of the park, he has to adopt the same practices everyone else does for the benefit of the entire organization. And so like that was one of the hugest paradigm shifts for me, is after a minute, I'm like, okay, because at first I kind of let my team run wild. Like, I'm the great leader. Who cares about process? And then the monkeys were crazy all over the room and the glass breaking everywhere. And I'm like, oh, shoot, we should put these monkeys back in the cages. Maybe set some boundaries. And I learned that real fast. You have to be, so if you want to be a director of product management, you have to know how to define a process and get alignment around that.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you guys, and Ryan, you mentioned it briefly a few minutes ago, thinking about when you moved into that your director role, what mistakes stand out to you? Like starting with you, like what stands out as like, God, I wish I could go back, or sorry, gosh, I wish I could go back and change that decision. I wish I didn't do that. What stands out to you?
Joe, first of all, you missed an opportunity. The correct exclamation would have been golly.
Nice.
Joe Golly.
Golly.
Nice.
So one thing I think that where I did make a mistake is still remaining overly tactical. So I wanted to still be aware of, okay, what did you tell the development team, and what things are you doing over here? And being the type A perfectionist that I am, I loved knowing all of the details and kind of the things that were happening. And I needed to take a step back, not lean in. I didn't need to know everything. I needed to just see the battlefield, not the individual wars that were happening, or I should say the battles. I need to see the war, not the battles, sort of thing.
Todd, how about you?
Well, I mentioned one just a minute ago, right?
Yep.
So I talked about having not enough structure. I think one of the lessons I learned early on is, as a director, you have to fill a vacuum sometimes of direction. And what I mean by that is, regardless of the level that you're at, if you have directs, they need direction.
Yeah.
So sometimes we feel like, hey, I'm a first-time manager. I have some product managers reporting to me. I'm going to wait until I get direction from the VP or whoever's above me, or I'm going to wait to the company. You know, when I was at the LA Times, we went through some major leadership shifts. And what I learned through those were, if there is not clear direction from the very top, I have to make it make sense.
Yep.
And sometimes what that meant, so I built a chart. The first chart I did for my team on this is, I realized they don't know why what they're doing. They don't know how it's connected to the business. Mm-hmm. Because we had just gone through another change in strategy, another big shift. And I'm like, no one knows why they're doing what they're doing. They're just moving forward on their roadmaps. And so what I did is I actually put a chart together. I went and I listened to our most recent QBR as a company with the new leadership. They had mentioned a couple things they cared about, and I put that at the top. And then I went from that and I drew the next layer for our business unit. Okay, well, then our business unit, this is how our business unit accomplishes that business objective. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went to the next one. Okay, here's how your product accomplishes that. Here's your role. I went even a step further. Here are the things that you're doing, that your accountabilities that are going to drive success, that's going to move the needle on our department, that's going to move the needle on the business. Now, did I have perfect alignment with my department head at the time? No, I certainly didn't have any direct contact with the leadership team. But that direction at least gave the teams like a clear sense of where to go, and was much better than wandering in the wilderness, which is what we'd had been doing for a few months before that.
Yep. Mine is a really simple mistake. By nature, I'm a people pleaser. I just wanted my team to like me. And I was more focused on...
Yep, 100%.
Oh, that's a good one,
I wanted them
Joe.
to like me.
Yeah.
I've done it too.
Yeah.
I wanted them to like me. I wanted to be popular. I wanted, I didn't want them talking about me behind my back like they did with other leaders. Boy, I paid the price for that. I paid the price for that dearly. But boy, Todd, I wish I had met you when I was 31 years old, like just even mapping out outcomes, because man, that would have been so much more impactful. And I think it's like understanding respect. Respect is gained. Respect is earned, not given. I think that was like my biggest lesson, moving from a individual contributor level into a director leadership role as a product manager. You know what's funny about that? So I say this all the time. When you work for me, I tell you from the very first day, I trust you. You don't have to earn my trust. You got it. If you don't have to, if you're worried about whether or not I trust you, you're just going to make a bunch of mistakes and you're going to go slow. We don't have time for that. I trust you. You got it. Yep.
One thing I've learned is I believe that's how it should go from leader down. In the other direction, we have to earn trust.
Totally.
And I'm okay with that.
Totally.
If you believe you should walk in the room with your title and then everyone should listen to you,
Right.
you're making a big mistake.
Totally.
And you know what's funny about that? You were talking about being liked. I'm the same way. I'm still that way. I know it's probably surprising people, but I care about being liked.
Just I want people to like me.
I do. I care about people liking me. Just because I don't have friends doesn't mean I don't care about people liking me. But anyway, one thing I've learned is you know what people like about a leader? You want people to like you as a leader? Here's what they like. They like knowing where they're going.
Yeah.
They like someone who trusts them and gives them opportunities to make mistakes. They like someone who gives them feedback and helps them grow.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think sometimes we think being liked, and I think it's okay. I mean, respect and like, there's some similarities. I think sometimes we think like, I'm only going to be liked if I don't have any boundaries. Actually, you won't be. If as a leader, you're not setting any boundaries, if you're not creating any formula, you're not going to be liked.
Yeah.
Because it feels unsafe. It feels very safe when you report to someone. This is for all of us, right? When you report to someone that has a way of working, that has a goal you're trying to achieve, that is very clear on how you're going to achieve that goal, that gives you feedback when you're off track towards that goal, and then shouts you out when you're doing a good job. Well, shoot, you feel safe. You feel confident. And so, that's just the thing to remember. I think being liked changes. Like you were saying earlier, Ryan, right? When you're just a PM and you're PM buddies, being liked is the best joke you can tell at the table. When you're a boss, it's just how you're liked just changes, or why you're liked.
And by the way, I just wrote down my key takeaways, so I'm totally stoked. I'm going to save my little nugget for the end. So I'm totally stoked about this. For whatever it's worth, my quick story on that is there was not alignment around technical debt, investment in technical debt. Our leadership team really wanted to forge ahead with some, at the time, cutting edge fintech capabilities. And my engineering manager, JJ, is like, Joe, we can't go forward with what you guys want to do until we spend the next quarter updating our technology stack. Like, it will break us. It will create so much risk for us in the future if we don't do it. And I think that was the first time where, and we haven't really spoken about this, but I think it's an undertone. And that's, I had to tell a story. I had to say, guys, here's the scenario that we're in. We've built this technology on a tech stack from the early 90s at the time. It hasn't been touched. We're trying to build on top of it. It's like building on top of, toothpicks and chewing gum. If we continue to invest in this, it's going to break and it's going to hurt our credibility with our stakeholders and our leaders. It's like, we have to take a step back. But I'm like, moving forward, we're going to try to do this in bite-sized chunks versus wasting an entire quarter doing technical debt, which I don't think any one of us want to do. And I realized at that moment the art of storytelling with leadership. And I realized that was a big shift in the way that I communicated with leaders. It was more like, I got to tell them the why. Like, I gotta set the context behind the decisions that we're making so they understand it and can have empathy. And I think that was a big shift for me. And I think I took that and I built upon it because they didn't agree with me, but they understood and they respected the decision that I made. And they knew it was an unpopular one.
And that's important, right? You learn how to communicate decisions.
Totally.
You have to be good at communicating the why behind decisions.
Totally.
And one of the things that a place I've over-indexed at time is transparency, though. There are times I've been too transparent.
Yep.
And so you have to find a way to communicate in a way that will help and enable your team and empower them without giving away more than you're supposed to at a certain time. Okay, I wanted to say one thing here. I think it's important. If people are thinking about being a director of product management, so I'm going to call booty on something that I see on LinkedIn all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call booty on it now. So at this level, you can go director or you can go principal, and you can still make about the same amount of money. That's true. So if your goal is, I want to get more money, but I don't want to manage people, I don't want to manage process, I don't want to play politics, then director's not for you. You definitely should go the principal path. That's better. But there's a limit to how high you can rise with IC.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you have to decide with yourself, like, if I really want that money, then you're going to need to care about managing people. You're going to need to care about coaching and process and politics and all those yucky things that come with the job.
Yep.
Ryan, how would you describe what a principal product manager is to someone versus a director of product? I mean, Todd's kind of, you're managing people. I think that's one part. But what is a principal product manager if you were to explain it?
Yeah, it's the most senior level of individual contributor that a product manager can attain. Usually you start out somewhere like associate product manager.
Yep.
Then you graduate to product manager, then senior product manager. And that's usually where things diverge. You have a choice to make. You can start being a manager of product managers as like a group product manager, and then a director of product management, or just straight to director of product management. Most organizations don't have group product managers. Or you could go down the other path, which leads to principal product manager, where you are responsible for managing other product managers, but you are the most senior on the team in terms of the scope of responsibility that you can have and the decision power that you have, those sort of things.
All right, so I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll go into key takeaways. Ryan, which personas, like in your world when you became a director, which personas did you stop thinking about daily, and which new personas entered your world as a director of product?
Wow. So those that I stopped thinking about daily was, I'm going to go back to my restaurant analogy, the individual person at table 7. Instead, I had to think about all the people coming in the restaurant. So it wasn't that I didn't care about them or just stopped thinking about them, but I had to see the bigger picture. That, are we attracting the right audience into my product portfolio? Are we, in my case, I mean, very specifically, we were trying to be too many things to too many people. How do we get more specific in some cases to attract the right people to be more successful for my product line? So it wasn't necessarily stop and start. It was more shifting focus from more narrow to wide.
Todd, how about you?
I mean, the same. The user persona changes, right? So I'm not thinking about, from the user persona perspective, I'm not actually thinking about each of the individual product user personas. I spent more time thinking about our buyer, less time thinking about our user. Not that I didn't care. I did care. At times I'd forget maybe a user persona name or something. Focus more time on the buyer persona. And then across stakeholders, that changed as well. So spending much less time with engineers. What's funny is I really love engineers. Every once in a while, I'll still join a sprint ceremony just to see the engineers and say hi and participate in some of that. I can offer them nothing. I have nothing to give anyone anymore. But I did miss that. So it wasn't, at the director level, if I do see engineers, it's more the lead engineer from a different product. I don't get to see all of them. Not really working with them anymore. Same with the UX. I'm working with, if there's a lead UX designer, that's probably the only one I'm working with. And then I'm spending more time at more senior level stakeholders. And, there is something to say about politics, of just playing more politics. And that's part of the game. And it's one of those things. I remember a friend of mine, we were like 18 or something, and we're at his mom's house and we're chatting about dating. And he goes, I just don't want to play the game. I don't want to play the game. I don't want to play the dating game, because we were talking about all the things you got to do to impress girls and go on dates, and the way you got to be cool on the first date and not give away how much you like them and all this kind of stuff. We were just talking about all the dating stuff. His mom and I having a great conversation about dating. He's like, I don't want to play the game. And we're both just like, well, to enjoy being single. It's going to be fun. Like, your choice is play the game or be alone.
Yeah.
It's the same in product management. It's the same. I mean, honestly, I'm probably honest any career, but especially product management. I know this. Either play politics, learn how to play the politics, or enjoy never advancing in your career. And then one day we'll have to do a full episode on politics, because I also don't think that needs to be a bad word. I certainly am not saying be a brown nosing, clown or something, or, be a shark and throw people. I'm not saying any of that. But I do mean there is a little bit to the game.
I was thinking about something as you guys were talking about the new personas, and you guys have kind of like covered the whole spectrum of, across organization. You're dealing now with senior leadership. Todd, you mentioned the buyers. Ryan, you mentioned, I'm not as much focused on the person at table 7, but I'm more focusing on the crowd. Mm-hmm. I remember what I really liked was, I feel like as a director, you have more of an outside perspective. Like you're more aware of what's happening outside your organization, and you get to bring that story to the group more holistic. Like you're talking about like the market, like what's happening in the market or what's happening in the industry, and bringing that. And I really enjoyed, I feel like I thrived on that because, as someone that likes to be a public speaker and get in front of audiences, I feel like, when I got a chance to get in front of our quarterly planning, our annual planning, and I got to speak to the crowd, I got to share the full story. And I feel like a really good leader in product is like, you're kind of like getting in front of, you're motivating everyone. You're bringing all these people together. You're trying to march towards this goal, and your excitement, and people can feel your passion. And I'm like, yes, okay, now I know I'm in the right spot. I'm in the right role, because that's what I really want to enjoy. And I tell people all the time, when they want to go into a direct role, I'm like, you have to want to do that.
Yes.
You're kind of like a general leading a brigade, right? You're there to motivate everyone, get everyone excited. You're kind of getting everyone to kind of march in the same direction that you're going. You gotta want that. Like that's what good leadership is.
And you should be able to start getting enjoyment out of seeing others have success.
Exactly. 100%.
Because that's where it's going to come from. Seeing your product manager succeed in their role, coaching them and seeing them grow. That's where your joy is going to come from as a director of product management.
Totally. All right. So
and you got to build systems and templates.
Systems and templates. Exactly. All right. So let's start with key takeaways. I'm so proud of myself. I wrote one down. I'm just so stoked. But I'm going to go last. But I'm really upset at both of you if one of you takes it from me. So
you should go first.
What?
Say it.
You should go first.
All right. So my key takeaway is this. Everyone is all about like the instant gratification. People are like, what book do I need to read? Who do I need to follow on LinkedIn? Who do I need to follow on X? What investments do I need to make? And, I keep telling people, all the three of us were talking about our own experiences. Like that's how we got to where we are. We fell down. We fell flat on our face. We can learn from it. We share that experience. Like to get into a leadership role, it's time. It's time. It's experience. It's life experience. It's kind of like being a parent. Yeah. You've just got to go through it. The journey. You got to have war stories. I feel like that's part of also the journey of becoming a really good leader. Like you're not just going to be like, well, I have this certification, or I've read this book, or I've read all these podcasts, or those are great. You should be doing all that. You should be investing in your time, but nothing beats experience when it comes to being a product leader.
Well said.
So this is, I'm going to take this in an interesting direction for my key takeaway. We were talking about how the different levels think and behave and such, but we didn't spend any time talking about incentives. What does that kind of, the company that you work for actually reward you to do? Because I don't think it's as tidy as maybe we're leading people to believe. So you also have to understand the ecosystem that you're in and look for conflicts between what you think is right and what others are expecting of you. Sure. Because when that happens, the nice textbook definition or things we're talking about here might not matter as much. And maybe it's an opportunity for you to find something new that gives you what you need to develop or put you in a better position to flex the muscles that you want to flex. So kind of just have that bigger awareness too.
Yeah.
My takeaway is growth requires humility.
Oh,
When you think about what you believed about the world when you were 15 and then 21 and then 30, you evolve. I remember when I was 21, 22, I had my roommate was 7 years older than me, 8 years older than me. You told me, Todd, you really seem to think the world is black and white. As you get older, you're going to learn it's not. It's a lot of gray. And the truth is, as I've gotten older, I've seen the world is a lot more gray than I thought when I was 21. So I say that to say, as we're talking about this, just get ready to be humbled as you grow. Get ready when you make these shifts. If you're not humble enough to adapt a new way of thinking, if you want to believe the way you're thinking now as a product manager is how you're going to think as a director of product management, you're going to struggle. Yeah. You're going to struggle. So get ready to change your mind. I've changed my mind numerous times in my career. That's just part of growth.
All right, gentlemen. Until next time, stay out of trouble, and I'll see you both on the porch.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Good night.
Yeah, see you guys.
Thank you for joining us on the Product Porch. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can also find us on LinkedIn for more content. We offer a special thank you to AJ and Jack Blockier for the music. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are their own and do not represent nor necessarily reflect those of their employer.